We got a lot to talk about on today's edition of the Red Sox Rundown. Sam Kennedy, Alex Cora, Craig Breslow all spoke to the media today in their end of season press conference. And we got a lot of different nuggets that we're going to discuss. But before we do, one of the key themes that I took away from that press conference was the Red Sox in general feel like this past season was a step in the right direction. And I tend to agree with that. They made the postseason for the first time since 2021, showed really good strides at home, had a lot go their way. They just fell short at the end of the season. So if you're excited for 2026, I'm excited for 2026. I'm very excited to see what they do in the offseason to get ready for 2026. If you're excited for the Red Sox in 2026, all I want you to do is like today's video. That'll give me a pulse and a list of all the people who are excited about the Red Sox going into next season. Okay, so they talked for, it felt like almost an hour. There was a lot of questions, comments from Kennedy, Breslow, and Cora all alike, and I took away 5 talking points that I thought were probably the biggest talking points, in my opinion, at least. And let's obviously start with the elephant in the room. That's Alex Bregman. Someone asked about Bregman and Story and about their opt-outs and things like that. And someone also asked about if he was going to talk to Bregman and his representatives over the next month before free agency opens up. And he did exactly what we thought he was going to do. He was going to play coy. He wasn't going to say anything. He said he's going to keep those combos between them. That's not a surprise. You know he's not going to talk about these negotiations and things that are happening before they actually happen. But he did give Bregman a lot of love. Kennedy did as well. Cora did as well. They all talked about how important he was to the team, the intangibles that he brought to the team, not just on the field, but off the field. Breslow in particular was very... He talked a lot about how he really was impressed about how he returned from his injury early, and things of that nature. So obviously they are fans of Alex Bregman. How much, though, are they fans of Alex Bregman? That's going to be the big question. How much are they willing to spend? Because if they don't magically come up with some sort of extension or roster reconstruction or something like that over the next month, which if I'm looking right now, I don't really expect that to happen with Scott Boras as his agent. If that doesn't happen, he's going to be a free agent. And the Red Sox are going to be on the same playing field as everyone else. They're going to have to pay. They're going to have to bid. They're going to have to win a bidding war if they want Bregman back. Now, is that number going to be as big as we probably thought it was going to be going into last season? Probably not, because there are concerns about the age, there are concerns about the injuries, and he did not play well when he came back from injury. I think we can all admit that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the next month goes, if we get any updates, things like that. Mark Feinzan's reported that he thinks that his sources are telling him it's basically a done deal that he's going to opt out, but things could change in the next month. We were told that Garrett Crochet's deadline to sign an extension was opening day, and then it happened a few weeks to a month or so later. Like, people have these, quote unquote deadlines and things like that, but money talks. Things can change. If the Red Sox come to Bregman with a contract restructure that looks good, pays him a lot of money, makes him happy, I don't see why he wouldn't sign it, because I don't think it's all about the money for him. I think it's also about a place where he wants to play. And I think he wants to play in Boston. He's just waiting for the Red Sox to make the move. You predict it for me. Is Alex Bregman back on the Red Sox in 2026? All I want you to do is type Y for yes if you think he is. Type N for no if you think he is not. You let me know down below in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Again, this is going to be one of the most divisive questions we talk about all offseason long. So get your thoughts in. Y for yes and for no. What do you think is going to happen with Alex Bregman? Is he back on the Red Sox in 2026? Let's talk about Triston Casas. He was brought up a few times in this conversation. Obviously, the conversation around a DH, around a first baseman, things like that. And someone straight up asked Breslow if he thought Casas was going to be the first baseman in 2026. He was not willing to commit to that. Now, there are various factors as to why. How long is his rehab going to take? According to Breslow, the rehab's been going well, but he wasn't going to put a timeline on it. And the injury concerns in general are concerning. Casas has seemingly always gotten hurt every single year that he's played. But he also, and this is kind of the theme of this entire thing is you talk a little bit about the concerns, but then you also show a bunch of praise, because you're not just going to crap on the players, especially players that got hurt. He acknowledged what Bregman's done in the majors, and like, look, his career stats are not bad. Starting this past season before he got hurt, he did not look good, and there was a lot of conversations about it. Is he the guy going forward? And then he got hurt, and now that point is mute. But I still, and I'm gonna push this propaganda all off season. I still think Casas has the ceiling to be a superstar. I do. Has he shown it? No. Is he always injured? Yes. But I really think that the ceiling's there. And if they think Casas is back healthy in time, and if they trust what he's going to bring to the table, if they trust that he's going to stay healthy, I think they do at least have a conversation about it. Now, there are other external factors at play, though, as well. Do they look at a Pete Alonso? Do they, have those types of conversations, potentially bring in an external first baseman, maybe to add some pressure to Casas? I don't know. That's going to be a question for a few months down the line when we get to the winter meetings and things like that. But him not committing is at least a little telling. But again, I do also kind of understand why he doesn't commit, because of the injury concerns. We don't even know if he's going to be ready for opening day. That's what Casas says. That's what Casas hopes for. But we've seen Casas talk about injuries before, and then him be out way longer than he ever thought. So we'll see what happens. I don't know. No timeline at the moment, but his rehab's going well, so that's always good news. We'll see, though. We'll see. I'm still on the Casas train. We just didn't have the opportunity to watch him really play at all this past season, and we'll see if he gets a shot again next year. Carlos Narvaez injury update. This was a little surprising, to say the least. I don't think it's as surprising when you look at the fact that he's a catcher, his knees, this, that, the other thing. But this was announced. I did a short on it a little while ago. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. That Carlos Narvaez, Breslow announced, is having a quote-unquote straightforward knee procedure at some point this week, and it is quote-unquote, again, to have his meniscus cleaned up. Apparently, there had been a couple times this season when it flared up. He did miss some time at some point in the season. I guess that's what that was for. And according to Breslow, it's a straightforward procedure. It's nothing crazy. They're just cleaning it up. It's not, as far as we know, some sort of full meniscus reconstruction or anything like that. Maybe more will come out in the future dates that says it might be a worse injury, but as far as we know, it's not anything super serious. Should be ready for spring, although Breslow didn't want to commit to a timeline, of course, because, there can always be setbacks. Things could happen. You could find more damage. It could be more damaging than we originally thought. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think something that Breslow highlighted, I think something that a lot of people have highlighted that I completely agree with, is that's incredibly impressive from Carlos Narvaez, that he was able to have the season that he had when he had meniscus issues and is now getting surgery on his meniscus, and for him to finish out the season. Look, if you just look at his raw stats, they're impressive for a rookie catcher. 241 average, you'd love to get that up, but it is what it is. 726 OPS, that's not bad for a rookie catcher in the American League East. That's pretty good. Tack on 15 home runs, 50 RBIs, 38 walks. He had stretches where he really didn't look good, but everyone on the Red Sox had stretches where they didn't really look good. And he did come up with clutch hits, time and time again, especially in crunch time. He had a few clutch hits as well. So, he's going to be the catcher of your future. I think we've all determined that. I think we all know that. And I'm very happy to have him on this team. He was really great, not just offensively, but also defensively. We have to talk about that as well. He was dominant behind the plate. But yeah, I mean, this is definitely something that I wasn't expecting. Maybe if you're a catcher, you've been a catcher in the past, you might have been like, well, of course, knees give out all the time. And yeah, sure. But, from not knowing anything to, oh yeah, he's having surgery this week, was at least a little bit surprising. But again, that just shows how impressive it was that Narvaez was able to finish out the season, and now he needs surgery. That's very, very impressive from the captain, Carlos Narvaez. Show some love to him. Go spam your 75s in the comments. Wish him well. Give him the good vibes. Hopefully the surgery goes well. Hopefully there's no setbacks, and hopefully he's ready to be in Fort Myers at the beginning of spring training. Yeah, send those good vibes. Spam your 75s. Get down below in the comments. Show him the love. Two more talking points. Coaching staff talk. This one's going to be quick. Craig Breslow talked about the coaching staff in a very bright light, said that they did a fantastic job this season, thought that they had to deal with a lot of, outside factors that they couldn't control, injuries and things like that. But he did mention, though, that him and Cora are discussing things and had no updates about any changes right now. Obviously, they finished the season a few days ago, so I don't think they'd be making any rash changes at the moment. But it was at least a little telling, because I believe the question, if I remember correctly, was like, is the entire coaching staff going to be back next year? And, sometimes, they're like, yeah, the coaching staff did a great job. We're very happy where we're at, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he didn't commit to that, and I think there are some names to talk about. Kyle Hudson, as much as he's been a figure that's been on Cora's staff for a while, we've talked about him more this season than we have any season. And if you're a third base coach, that's not a good thing that you're being talked about. And I'm not saying they're going to let go of him, but Pete Fatsy's definitely someone to talk about. They had their stretches of being really hot, but the inability to hit with runners in scoring position, absolutely imploding at the end of the season after the Roman Anthony injury, there has to at least be a conversation about the hitting coach. Although Breslow did point to the metrics for the entire season and said, top half in runs and average and all these other things. And, that can be kind of skewed when you put up like huge number of games and then score no runs for the rest of the series, which the Red Sox did a lot this season. So that was at least something that I thought was a little telling, something to keep an eye on over the next few weeks, see if there are any coaching changes. I don't know exactly what would happen. Again, I think the two biggest names, Kyle Hudson and Pete Fatsy, are the ones to look at. Not saying that either of them are in trouble of losing their jobs, but are the two that a lot of people have been talking about in terms of, hey, what the heck were they doing at some points this year? To finish off a little bit, he talked about roster. Of course, they were talking about roster construction, how they can get better. Breslow, like I said, kind of like the Bregman stuff, was very coy, didn't really give anything away. He said we still got to have a lot of conversations about this. Did kind of lean towards talking about having to add another pitcher in the rotation. He didn't say it specifically, but he did talk about we're going to do everything that we can to get better and, strengthening the front of the rotation. We might have to do externally, maybe signaling to not feeling completely confident that there is a number two in their plethora of pitchers, which I kind of agree with, and I think most people agree with. Brian Bayo's not a number two. Lucas Giolito, I predicted in yesterday's video, is probably going to opt out and go to another team, so I don't know if they're going to get him back, and he really even wasn't that big of a number two either. And then you've got a bunch of young guys, and is Tanner Houck a number two? Well, he didn't show that this past year before he got hurt. Is Richard Fitz, is Hunter Dobbins, two young guys. I don't think that they're number twos. Is Cutter Crawford? I don't think that he's a number two either. So he did kind of motion that they might have to look externally, Joe Ryan, please, to find a number two, and I expect them to do that. But the biggest thing that they talked about this at length, by the way, was what we talked about at the beginning of the season, this outfield logjam, and what are they going to do with the four outfielders. And Breslow basically said, and I have this as a quote, I might be kind of paraphrasing, but he basically said to the extent everything's on the table. And he said that they liked having, the flexibility. Cora said he loved having four outfielders because he can work around different situations. He can platoon people. And if there's an injury, a Roman Anthony injury, a Wilyer Abreu injury, he's got that flexibility, which I can understand on one point. But on the other, they got to make some decisions here. They cannot run four outfielders when they all should be starting outfielders. Literally, Tim Healy just tweeted this out as I'm recording this. This is what Cora had to say on the outfield surplus. He said, if I have four, I can manage them. You find ways, and at the end of the day, the deeper the better, to be honest with you. And that's something that we got tested at the end of the season. We cannot control injuries. We cannot control slumps. That's literally Alex Cora's quotes verbatim from the press conference. So I think Cora is all in favor of keeping them. But Breslow said everything's on the table. So does that mean an outfield trade? And if that does mean an outfield trade, which outfielder goes? I think Jarren Duran's on the top of that list. As much as I don't want to admit it, and I love Jarren Duran. He's my favorite current Red Sox. I have his City Connect jersey. I want to make that clear right now, so all the Jarren Duran lovers don't come at me in the comments. He's the one that would make the most sense in a trade. They don't want to get rid of Ceddanne and his platinum glove level defense in center field. They don't want to get rid of Wilyer. He won a gold glove. I believe he has a higher offensive ceiling. They don't want to get rid of him. And Roman Anthony is the future face of your franchise. So Those three make no sense. Jarren this year kind of became a shell of himself from the year before in terms of offensive production. He was not nearly as good. He was still good, but not nearly as good. And offensively, he turned into a liability in left field. I think we can all admit that. Had the drop in the postseason. That cost a run. Might have cost the game. I love Jarren. He's very important to this team. Breslow even admitted that. He said, we know how important Jarren is to this team. He's important to the team. But if you're going to get rid of one of them, it seems like that's the way it's trending. I don't want that to be the way, because again, I love Jarren. I think he's fantastic, but that seems to be the way it might be trending. This is something we're going to keep an eye on throughout the rest of the offseason, so don't miss out on any of that. That's something we're going to talk about. Do the Red Sox trade an outfielder this offseason? You let me know. This is another one of the big questions we're going to be talking about the entire offseason. T for trade if you think they do. K for keep if you think they keep all four. I think they're going to trade one. I do. I think if the price is right in like a Joe Ryan trade or another trade, I think they're going to. But Cora's words are very strong, and we've seen that Breslow is willing to listen to Cora. He brought in Alex Bregman last year when all reports were Breslow didn't want to bring him in, but Cora really wanted him. So they might not. But if the price is right, if you're trying to get a Joe Ryan trade done and they want Jarren Duran, or the Padres come knocking and they want to give up some prospects that you could flip for a Joe Ryan, or you get a reliever from the Padres, that could happen. And that's something I think we need to prepare for, because four outfielders is good, but if one of them is going to sit every day, it's just not worth it at that point, in my opinion. So T for trade if you think they're going to trade one. K for keep if you think they're going to keep all four. You let me know down below in the comments. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Just because the season's over does not mean we are done. We're going to be here every day with videos covering all the latest free agency news, trade rumors, everything under the sun. We're doing a video just after the press conference ended today. So that's the type of stuff you're going to get here. We also have short form content every day. We had a short on the Carlos Narvaez news a few hours ago. This is the type of stuff you're going to get here at the channel. So make sure you hit the subscribe button. Don't miss out. We're going to have you covered with everything going on surrounding the Boston Red Sox. That's it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a rest of your day. And until next time, go Sox.